Hi, this is Majinoni, and here's some comic reviews for you. I have some independent stuff and some DC. We have Hit Girl number 5, Fairy Quest number 1, Detective Comic 17, Stormwatch 17, and World's Finest 9. Oh, and we got one more. Earth 2 number 9. Okay, let's do the independent ones first. Hit Girl, I'm just going to say it's pretty straightforward. If you've been watching or reading Hitman, it's not Hitman, Hit Girl or Kick-Ass, you know what you're in for. You know what the art's like, and it's just super violent. And it basically, Hit Girl has to protect her family because the mob is after the dad for different reasons. And the dad obviously thinks that the mob is after her because she's Hit Girl, and carnage and death ensue. And the one thing I will say was kind of entertaining is along the way, it's not just a simple like a stabbing or a shooting. She tries to be kind of creative with each one, and while we don't get the bloody details along the way, we get to see the final results, and some of them are kind of entertaining, and it's not like what I would consider like a great piece of storytelling. It's just violent. And this, of course, just leads right up into Kick-Ass 2. So, it is what it is. Okay, Fairy Quest. This is Jenkins and Ramos's project that was on Kickstarter. And this is actually a really solid read. What's going on is you have a fairy tale world and where all the characters are like alive. And Grimm is basically standing over them, and he makes them follow the script of the fairy tale. But there are people who are getting bored of the fairy tale. Like, for an example, Red Riding Hood, who's a central character, she doesn't like the way her story went after a while, and then she befriends the wolf, and it's not sitting well with Grimm and his thought police. Now, Red Riding Hood isn't alone, and there are other fairy tales that are doing the same thing, or starting to feel that same problem. And they meet and they talk about what's going on and their problems. Now, there's a rumor that there's another place that's supposed to be better, but they don't know where it's at. I'm sorry, that's not that they don't know where it's at, they don't know if it's real. And the very next day, Cinderella gets captured. She rats some people out, and Red Riding Hood escapes. And she goes to the wolf to basically, get away, because the wolf was also probably going to get targeted, and they go on an adventure together. The ending was actually really good, and the way they connected stories together, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the next issue. I'm definitely going to put this on my pull list. The art is really good. Ramos did a fantastic job with this. It's kind of like, you can see his superhero-y elements, when he would, let's say, draw from Spider-Man or something, but it has a very soft look to it, too, at the same time, very user-friendly, like style. And this is definitely, like one of those types of titles where if, people don't want to read a superhero title, but they're interested in comics, this is definitely one of those types of books to give somebody. At least from what I can tell based on the first issue, it's also kid-friendly. There's no death and nudity or anything like that. Even the part where the wolf, eats the grandmother, it's part of the story, and they don't really show it. So they just mention it in a blurb. So that's not even like a scary thing. Overall, like I said, this was like a really, really entertaining read. I'm definitely glad I picked this up. Okay, Detective Comics 17, The Merrymaker. Oh, I don't know what to say about this. This is basically just a setup, I guess, for a new villain that went pretty much nowhere. All it is like a psychologist who got tired of dealing with these criminals, and he discovered that they have a common theme of how people started to fantasize about the Joker, and I don't mean that in a sexual way. It's like they start drawing the Joker, and then it's like this downward spiral. And he starts recruiting criminals for this, for his new wave of crime. Now, the beginning part was really kind of just lame and not really that interesting, and it really didn't do much for me. And I think that's mostly because I didn't think that the Merrymaker villain, well, the costume was good. I didn't think that they did a good job building him up into something to be feared. And one thing, though, I will add is at the very end, that's where the best part of the story comes into play. Because after the Merrymaker is captured, he talks to somebody, and they have a very interesting conversation. I'll word it that way. The art, though, was really good, but I don't think that the story was like anything really to write home about, which is a shame, considering, you have Snyder's fantastic run with Death of the Family. This is just a letdown. Okay, Stormwatch 17. I think I realized what my problem is with Stormwatch. In my head, I have a vision of how these characters are supposed to talk and how they're supposed to act, and they're not doing that. The way Apollo and Midnighter are reacting to each other, and the way the other characters are, it's just not the same. And I realize that this is a new 52. I realize this is a reboot and everything, but I think at the very heart, some of the important parts of the characters are missing, and that's where I'm not. That's why I think I'm not enjoying it. Now, one thing I found kind of really pathetic was, you have Midnighter and Apollo. They go through that dimensional door thing, and then they eventually land on Earth. When Apollo wakes up, and they're in the Stormwatch is in the sky, and they're blasting them with lasers and stuff, constantly missing. Which, fine, they're tiny, and I can understand that. But Apollo's like going at 20% strength. He's having problems recharging, and he just flies away. And for some reason, they can't find him any longer. They just kind of disappear off the radar. I'm like, okay, you're supposed to be this intergalactic peacekeeping force for the to protect the Earth, and you're shooting a laser beam down, narrowly missing these people. But yet, when they're flying at 20% strength, you just can't find them. Maybe I can understand that to be the case if he teleported. But he didn't teleport. He's just slowly flying away. So I thought that was kind of lame. You have something definitely big is brewing on board, where we're talking about a genocidal type storyline. But I don't know if I'm like, my interest is waning on this, and I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep on board with this. The one thing I will say at the very end, for you Wildcat fans, is the return of Zealot, and that part was good, but on the other hand, I don't know if it's enough to keep me going. I might just get the next issue, but beyond that, I don't know what I'm going to do, which is a shame. I mean, because like I think the art's really good, but I don't think these characters have the right voice, and I think that this book is really going in a bad direction. I want big epic stories. I want big dangerous villains. Kind of like what the Avengers are going to be going through, not internal struggles. Okay, World's Finest Huntress and Power Girl. I won't go into too much detail with this, but I will say this: it's an entertaining read for me, but it's not elevating itself to a higher level. This is pretty much showing you how these two characters, when they went to Earth, how they start to get settled, how the Huntress basically gets her equipment. And for those of you who don't know why there's people trying to kill the Huntress, they give you some flashback with that. I will say they did make a pretty big art mistake. They get involved in a gunfight, and from these repo men, so to speak, who are trying to steal technology. Now you see the Huntress here has a cast on her hand. On the very next page, she's jumping, shooting without the cast, rolling without the cast, and shooting again without the cast, and we never see the cast again. Which makes me go, you forgot something pretty important here. Just to tell like a better story in terms of panels. Because I have to admit, the panels here, sequence here was really good. It's just, it's not accurate, which is a shame. Because that's all I focused on once I reached that point. I don't know how long I'm going to keep this one up. I mean, I know I'm probably reading this thing for all of the wrong reasons. I'm reading it for reasons that will never happen. But it's that glimmer of hope that we might get a hint of a storyline that we all would like. And I think that's the only reason why I'm really staying on. But it's a decent read, though. I'll give it that much. But I think in the long haul, it's just going to lose steam. Because once these characters become integrated within the rest of the Superhero 52 world, I think that's when they're going to lose interest. Because right now, it's kind of exciting in the sense, how are they going to handle meeting certain characters? And once that novelty wears off, I don't think so far there's much to it. Earth 2 is definitely the better version of this book. What we have here is they're setting the stage for meeting Dr. Fate. And you have the government going after the Flash. Which, you know, I understand why they want to capture him, but the way they go about it is really wrong. And if anything, it's just going to push the Flash away from wanting to help you. With, you know, going after him and his mom at his house type thing. With guns and threatening the mom and stuff. Which is, you know, like, you know, on one hand I'm going it's typical, but, you know, I think if they did it a peaceful way, I don't know if I would have liked it either. So, you know, I'm kind of torn with it. I think the way they did go, though, was a little bit more exciting. The one thing I did like is the way they handled Dr. Fate. He got the same powers, I mean, the powers the same time as Hawkgirl. And every time he tries to use his powers, he basically goes mentally insane for a while. And which makes him not want to use his powers. But yet, you know he's going to get drawn into everything, and he's going to have to do something. And this is basically the setup for that. The art, I thought, was good. The story was good. And Earth 2 is probably one of the better of the 52, not the relaunches, but the ones that got a chance later when they canceled their first wave. Which is a shame, because I think that, you know, maybe this might have been, you know, who knows how much more I would be enjoying this if this was part of the first launch and maybe Hawk Dove wasn't a part of that launch. But anyways, this is a look at some of these other books. So, this is pretty much a pass. Bye. Violence. And entertaining. I did not... I'm not going to review Swamp Thing and Animal Man, because I'm going to save that for a Rot World review. I figured, instead of giving my ups and downs throughout this whole series, I'll just save it for the end, and wait for the payout, and then I'll just go whoosh, all at once. Anyways, that's all for tonight. If you have any comments or questions, let me know. Like the Facebook link there, the Crunchyroll link there, because I do anime reviews. I'll have more reviews and stuff later. So until next time.